Chuck Ross. He's an investigative reporter at the Washington Free Beacon, and he has been following this story as closely as anybody. Chuck, great to talk to you as always, sir.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so we did expect this testimony. We knew, courtesy of the New York Post, that he was expected to testify that Joe Biden was on the phone dozens of times with business partners. Today, it's confirmed. Democrats are saying, well, this is a sign of Biden's innocence. What are you saying?
Yeah, I think it's anything but that. I think that, if Devon Archer, we have every reason to believe that Devon Archer did, as Fox reported, lay out this information of the phone calls. It is a smoking gun, in my opinion, that at the very least, Joe Biden was intricately involved in his son's business dealings, jumping on the phone with his business partners. And it confirms what we've heard about and suspected since 2019, if not a little bit before that, that the purpose of Hunter Biden being hired to the Burisma board. If Devon Archer is saying that the goal was to, get rid of investigations into Burisma, Devon Archer was at Burisma before Hunter Biden was. Devon Archer would know what the goal was. He was involved in the planning of bringing Hunter Biden onto the board. He was best friends and business partner with Hunter Biden, so
Yes.
He was involved in discussions. It's just confirming stuff that we've suspected for 4 and 5 years. And that Biden and the White House and the media has downplayed or denied that whole time. It's just remarkable that it's taken this long to come out. But as you said, I consider it a smoking gun right now. We'll see what else he says in the rest of his testimony today.
And to be clear, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. A lot of us are keying off of Chad Pergram's tweets today because he had some inside sourcing on what actually went down behind closed doors. But on the third tweet in this thread, he says, in December of 2015, Mykola Zlochevsky, the owner of Burisma, and Vadim Posharsky, an executive of Burisma, placed constant pressure on Hunter Biden to get help from D.C. regarding the Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin. Shokin was investigating Burisma for corruption. If I understand this correctly, this is Devon Archer's testimony. This isn't just Chad Pergram reminding us of the details.
Right. This is what Devon Archer said in his interview today that, and this has been the linchpin of the whole, Biden in 2018 famously said on TV that he got this Shokin prosecutor fired.
Yes.
Back in 2016. So what Archer testified to today matches up with everything that we've heard, timeline wise, money flow wise, what Joe Biden did and what happened as far as Shokin and the investigations into Burisma. It's all adding up. In my mind, there are no inconsistencies from what Archer has testified to today and what we've thought happened with Biden and with the Bidens and Burisma.
Yeah.
And then there's now the allegation, and I'm not going to jump in and say that this allegation is verified because it's not, but there's the allegation from a confidential FBI source who says that the owner of Burisma privately said that he paid bribes to the Bidens in order to get these investigations to go away and
Yes.
to help get their business in the United States. So Archer's testimony, I'm not going to say it verifies it, but it lines up with what that bribery allegation is.
It's a huge deal.
I think
it's a huge deal, and I'm seeing it's not just Chad Pergram. Miranda Devine also put out a thread where she sources Devon Archer's testimony directly as being responsible, as you just did, Chuck Ross. She said that they were placing pressure on Hunter Biden for help getting the Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin fired here. They wanted help, and boy, did it come. Boy, did help come in the form of Joe Biden. Now, I want to go back to what the excuses were at the time. While they were impeaching Donald Trump for asking questions about this, they were claiming that the entire Western world wanted Viktor Shokin fired and that Hunter Biden was just the messenger. Joe Biden was just the messenger. He went in there and he got Viktor Shokin fired because the whole Western world agreed. Well, if that's the case, if all of these Western governments wanted Viktor Shokin fired, then why didn't Burisma know that? Why did Burisma have to pay Hunter Biden a dime for something that the Western world wanted already?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like maybe the Western world did want Shokin gone as well, but also Burisma did. And now we know that Burisma was actively asking Hunter Biden to make that happen.
Yes.
So, maybe Joe Biden, it was convenient for Joe Biden that other people, other governments were asking, wanted Shokin removed. And that's up for debate still. I mean,
yes.
There's some mixed open questions on who actually was worried about Shokin and who wasn't. But what we do now know, what this establishes, is that Hunter Biden's client also wanted Shokin gone. And then lo and behold, he was gone a few months later. Again, like I kind of just went over, I mean, Joe Biden in the White House, they can maybe try to mask, hide the ball a little bit and say that, oh, well, we did this because European governments wanted him gone. It's a convenient cover for him if he did this also for his son.
Yes, absolutely. So, Dan Goldman stepped up to microphones today, the Democrat from New York, and he insisted, he said that, yes, Devon Archer confirmed that Joe Biden, on at least 20 occasions, joined phone calls with Hunter Biden's business partners overseas, but then said all they discussed was the weather, and Joe wasn't aware of any of his son's business dealings. Do you sense that the goalposts are shifting rather dramatically today?
Yeah, I mean that was pretty humorous. Yeah, definitely that they're shifting the goalposts, because back in 2019, Joe Biden was saying he never had discussions, and that's the word. He never had discussions about his son's foreign business dealings. And as evidence has come out that Joe Biden attended meetings with his son to discuss business, they've shifted it to now say, they weren't in business together. And now you have people like Dan Goldman, who is taking all kinds of arrows for the administration now, jumping out there in front of the microphones to help shift the goalpost there. But the funny part is that he also confirmed that Joe Biden was involved in phone calls, at least 20 phone calls,
yes,
with his son's business partners. So that's a pretty big confirmation.
I didn't have Dan Goldman confirms Joe Biden's involvement in the Biden family business on my bingo card today. I didn't know that he was going to be the one.
Yeah, he's stepped on many rakes in his defense of the Bidens. It's pretty funny. And he goes out there and says that, they were talking about the weather. Dan Goldman during the Trump administration was always making comparisons between Trump and a mob boss. And a powerful guy talking about the weather, kind of sounds like something that, mob bosses might cloak their true intentions behind. So it's funny, and he's the first guy to jump out in front of the microphones. Obviously, he's trying to put a Democratic spin on Devon Archer's testimony.
Yeah. I want to play some audio for you to remind people of Joe Biden's effort to get Victor Shokin fired. He had a phone call in February of 2016. This is February 18th, 2016. Joe is on the phone with then President Petro Poroshenko, and Poroshenko is delivering the news that he has fired Victor Shokin at Biden's request. This is what it sounded like.
Yesterday, I meet with the General Prosecutor Shokin.
Yes.
And despite of the fact that we didn't have any corruption charges, we don't have any information about he doing something wrong, I especially asked him, it was the day before yesterday, I especially asked him to resign. As his position as a state person, and despite of the fact that he has a support in the parliament. And as a finish of my meeting with him, he promised me to give me the statement on resignation. And 1 hour ago, he bring me the written statement of his resignation.
Great.
All right, so that audio is important, I think, because in it, Poroshenko says there's no indication that this guy has done anything wrong. There are no accusations against him, in fact. Victor Shokin is basically he's fine, is what Poroshenko's saying. But because you threatened to yank $1 billion from us, we fired him. And that's that audio, and that's Biden obviously expressing his gratitude for that.
Yeah, that's remarkable evidence there, and it occurred, again, the timeline, it occurred 2 or 3 months after Burisma really started pressuring Hunter Biden to get rid of that investigation. And so, it's compelling circumstantial evidence, just the timeline in and of itself.
Yes.
And then, as Poroshenko says, we have no good reason to fire him other than you're asking us to do it. So
right.
then that just raises the question of why all of a sudden Joe Biden wants him gone. And
right.
Devon Archer's testimony today ties it together just a little bit more. And so, and not to jump around, but this gets into, so the Congress is asking Devon Archer all of this. We found out last week that Devon Archer has also appeared before the federal grand jury that was investigating Hunter Biden. So I'm personally curious if the Justice Department asked these questions of Devon Archer as well,
yes.
and where that went, because that, given that Hunter Biden has only now been charged with low-level tax crimes. Seems there's a bigger issue going on.
The Burisma stuff is super important, and I'm glad you're highlighting it today. There's another thing that, we've talked about phone calls, but there's at least one in-person meeting that Joe was involved with. He's been involved in several publicly documented meetings with various business partners of Hunter, to include golfing with them. But in spring of 2014, Devon Archer laid out today, then Vice President Joe Biden actually attended a business dinner with Hunter and his associates at Cafe Milano right here in Washington, D.C. Present was the Russian oligarch Elena Baturina, the widow of the former mayor of Moscow. The Biden administration's public sanctions last year for Russian oligarchs did not contain Elena Baturina, which is kind of interesting. And last year, in fact, in July, a reporter shouted a question to Joe about why he didn't sanction Elena Baturina. Here's what that sounded like.
The Russian oligarch Elena Baturina, who did business with your son.
Joe refuses to answer, looks around confused, but that was Stephen Nelson of the New York Post asking that question, Chuck, and it does stand out, doesn't it, that they didn't sanction her?
Yeah, I mean, they sanctioned pretty much everyone else in Russia by now. So the fact that this one person who happens to have paid Hunter Biden millions of dollars and then met Joe Biden at a Cafe Milano, definitely stands out, to say the least. And Hunter's business dealings with this Elena Baturina were as shady as all the other business dealings he had. She was allegedly involved in all kinds of questionable financial dealings in Russia.
Yes.
And yes, and Joe Biden dodges all these questions, as you said, acting confused. He acts like a befuddled old man who doesn't understand the question or whatever. But now it's just starting to seem like he knows that people are figuring out the evidence, and he just ignores it, hopes it'll go away.
Well,
but Devon Archer's testimony again just opens up all sorts of questions now for the White House, and we'll see how they spin it now.
Yeah, we will see. And Devon Archer's testimony continues. It's happening as we speak. More headlines ahead, I'm sure. Chuck Ross, in the meantime, thank you as always. Good to talk to you, sir.